All right, today we're going to learn how to use the basics of Bryce here. Um, when you load it up, it's going to have this little itty bitty small screen here. First thing we're going to do is just move your cursor up here to the top, and it'll give you this pull down menu. Come in here to File and go to Document Setup. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this up document aspect ratio. We're going to put this at 16:9, which is like a format that you'd have for your screen. It's a 16. It's a standard 16:9. And then what we'll do is then up here on this one here, the up and down we'll do 1080, okay, which is 1080p. All right. And then go to OK, and then that'll have it fill up the whole screen. What you're seeing here in the middle here is your drawing screen, or your scene, as we call it, Bryce. In this upper left-hand corner here, we call this a nano preview, or a small preview, showing this. You'll notice this line right here, this blue line, that represents, if you look up here, the horizon line. Okay. Um, this right here actually represents the camera, this little square. Okay. Down below here, you'll see the ground. Now, what I don't want you to do is don't click things in here, because you can move them and accidentally, kind of like make them disappear. Like, for example, if I just kind of move this and select it, I can actually move it down below, and that was the ground. And then what you can do if you accidentally did something like that, you press this up arrow key, and that'll plop it up to the nearest spot. Um, so whenever you select stuff, you always want to press and hold down the control key. And what'll happen is this will pop up, and it might have multiple things on there that you can choose. Right here, it's just a plane. Okay. And that's our ground plane. So if you look at it, it's this gray, and we've got a sky up here. Okay. First things first, come up here to this little triangle here. This is like the view control options. If you click this, you can go to the camera view. Right now it's at the director's view, and it kind of shows it as a director's seat. If we click camera view, that'll put us where this camera is. So it'll kind of flip us in the opposite direction. You'll see it's shown by a camera. Okay. And now the camera's gone. You can choose the different views. Kind of like Rhino, you've got the different viewports, and here you have to go to each one of them. But you're going to have 6 different ones, okay? Top, right, front, left, back, and bottom, which are all the 6 views of an object. So you can go to top view, and then here you can see that camera from the top. The director's view is always opposite of the camera. You can go to different views here, right, front, okay, and then you're always seeing that camera. And then what this rectangle shows is the actual view, what you're seeing. It's that 16:9 view area, okay, because that's how the camera is. And we'll just go back to the camera view, okay. Now you've got these little icons here that can control the camera. So that's why I always want to go to the camera view, and then we can control this. This one right here is a trackball. It lets you rotate it. And then you can use these, and you'll see when you put your cursor on it in the lower left-hand corner, it'll tell you what control it is. This one's the XZ camera. This one here is the XY. This one here is the YZ. If you look down here at the bottom over here when you put your cursor on it. Okay. So you can move it in and out, left to right. Go to this one here, up and down. When you move it left to right, it moves left and right. This one here, you can move left to right, it zooms in. Up and down, it goes up and down. Okay, so by moving your mouse, you can change where you visualize this. Now, in this scene, this plane right here, press and hold down Control and select it. It's plane. That's an infinite plane. So if you look in the nano preview up here, it's kind of infinite. It goes on forever. It's like a ground plane that goes on forever. So that's basically that. Okay. Over here, whenever you select anything, you've got different things. You've got this right here, which is attributes. These are some other ones that I'm not going to talk about. But this one here is material. So if I go to the material, it goes into the material lab. Now you've got this diffuse button right here. If you press and hold that right there, you can change the color of that. Notice that. Now down here, there's a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to get into for right now because this is just the beginning stages of it. But you can make that material reflective. Okay. I'm going to put this at a blue color and I'm going to make it somewhat reflective. Okay. Now you won't see that until we actually put something in there. But if you render it, okay, so if you come over here, this little button right here is called render. So if I click that, it'll render the scene. Okay. Now right now that was a little reflective, that ground. And then you can get rid of this. If yours pops up, just come over here to this little icon and turn off port render time. I think your guys is just shut off, but so anyway, this is a little bit reflective, so it's showing the reflection of the sky. Okay. Now what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just put something in here. We're just going to go ahead and put this ball in here, this sphere. So you just click it, and what it'll do is it'll put it onto the ground. Now remember, whenever we want to select something, you always press and hold down Control. So I'm going to select this plane, and it'll give you a bunch of them. If I go back to select this sphere, notice it'll pop up sphere or plane. Okay, so we'll choose that sphere. Now we can go to this and we can change this material here. There's also some predefined materials, glass. There's just all kinds of different things. I'm going to go ahead and just do something real simple. I'm going to do this little blue ball here, shiny blue plastic. Do that, go to OK. And then you see in the nano preview, what it's going to look like when you render it. And then as you render it, it's going to show. And see, this is a little reflective. Okay. All right. If you want to stop the rendering, you press escape. If you want to render a scene and you just want to show parts of it, you go to this little spray can called spray render. And then you can just spray the area that you want to see. Okay. All right. So that's another way. Another way, if you press escape, you can toggle between the rendered and the wireframe. You can also come in here if you press escape and you just want to render instead of using that spray, you just want to render a certain area. You can drag across here like this, and then let go, and then just press this button. It'll render that section, not the whole thing, just that section. So there's a couple ways that you can do rendering. Okay. So to toggle between the two, press the escape key between wireframe and rendering. Up here, you've got, and we'll get into some of these other ones. We're just going over the basic stuff right now. You've got edit. So if you want to move something, you can come to this, reposition, and you put your cursor like this in the Y direction. It tells you what direction it's going. So if you drag it left to right, you move it up and down. Notice this little down arrow. That will put it down to the next thing. So in this case, next item, so which is the ground. So you plop it down there. You can move it on the X, drag it left to right. Okay, doing this. Okay. You can also manipulate these little handle points. You can manipulate these, go to any one of those. The corners, it'll make it scale it bigger. If you go to the middle of these on the different axes, X, Y, and Z, you can actually stretch it. Okay. You can actually stretch it in whatever direction. So that's, scaling it in one direction. This scales it in the corners. It scales it in all directions. Okay. So you can manipulate things in there under the edit. Here's resize. I can resize it just like I did in there. You can rotate things, on whatever axis. You just drag it left to right and any one of those axes. So you can just try those. Okay. Under sky and fog, you've got different settings here. I just want to show you the main one that we're going to use mainly is if you go to this there's different settings. There's different types of skies that you can do, and you'll notice it does different things to it. But what we like to do is we'll just put it on just a simple one here, Monday sky, I guess, doesn't matter. But you'll notice right here, this is the sun, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to move and watch the shadows over here in the nano preview. When I drag this and move the sun, notice how you're changing the direction of where the sun's coming from, okay? So here's that rendering. You can see where the sun, it changes. Okay. So there's different things you can do here. Now the biggest one that we'll use the most is if you go to sky and fog here. This is the different skies. If you could drag all the way down to the bottom, lower right-hand corner, it's a simple black background. That's what we will use for most everything that we render, unless I tell you otherwise. Is a simple black background. What it does, it turns off the atmosphere. There's no haze or fog, so it's a nice clear day, like if you're in the mountains. Okay, no haze, like if you're in LA or something like that. And then what it does is then you can render it. And it gives a nice simple black background, because usually we don't want black background, or just we want a simple black background. So that's what we usually use. Okay. The other thing, if you go into this is another item that we like to do. If you come here to the sky lab right here, okay, and into here, we can, sometimes I'll tell you to shut off the sun, but that one, it does do that. It disables the sunlight when you go to that one. Simple black background, okay. You want to disable the sun. Notice how in this nano preview, how it turns off the sun, and it makes it very, very dark. So what we like to do then is go up here to create, and we'll put light in. Usually this is a radial light, like a light bulb or the sun. Put that in there, and then notice in the nano preview you can see it's illuminated. I think it's probably, if we look at the top view here, it's probably kind of behind the object. Okay, so let's go back to the camera view. All right, and then what we can do is go to edit, and then we can move this. And you can kind of see the shadow down here. If you're not sure where it's at located, you can kind of see it. It kind of shows the shadow, so you know about where you're at. And then notice that it puts the sun in a certain location. You can move it up and do some different things to it, and then render it. But a lot of times we'll put lights in there to show it. Okay. Let's see. That's pretty much it for right now. If you do want to go in and change the intensity of the light, you can go in here to this edit, and you can change the intensity. Usually 25 is a pretty good one. A lot of times I'll tell you to bring different lights in, multiple lights to illuminate the scene. So you can select those different ones. Okay, remember, always press and hold down Control, select the different things. Okay, and we'll just go to that, and I can move this up into this location, maybe move it up. Okay, so you can kind of see what it's going to look like. Okay, so that's a lot of what we'll do is we'll use that simple black background, change the material of objects that we put in there, and I'll show you later in another video how to import objects into Bryce. So this is just a basic one, so go ahead and practice a little bit, putting different objects in here, changing the material, illuminating it, different things like that, different lights. There's spotlights, there's all kinds of stuff. So go ahead and play around with this and kind of become a little familiar with it just by adding in some objects. You can put trees, whatever. Okay.